In this video, we're going to take a look at conditional statements. Conditional statements are if-then statements. So for example, if a shape is a triangle, then the shape has three sides. That would be an example of a conditional statement. The hypothesis is the if part of the statement. The conclusion is the then part of the statement. So for example, label the hypothesis and conclusion of the following conditional statement. If a shape is a triangle, then it has three sides. So we're going to label the hypothesis and we're going to label the conclusion. The hypothesis is the if portion of the statement. So this portion before the comma is the if portion, and that's going to be the hypothesis. The conclusion is the then portion of the statement, and it is after the comma, so this side is the conclusion. Alright, go ahead and try this next one on your own. If a shape has four sides, then it is a quadrilateral. Go ahead and label the hypothesis and label the conclusion on your own, pressing pause and press play when you're ready to see the answer. So the if portion of the statement is that first portion with the if, that's the hypothesis. So if a shape has four sides is the hypothesis. And the portion with the then is the conclusion. So then it is a quadrilateral is the conclusion. Now that we know about conditionals, we can talk about converses. A converse is when you change the order of the hypothesis and the conclusion. So, for example, what is the converse of the following statement? If a shape is a triangle, then it has three sides. So we're going to flip that statement around. We're going to switch the if and then. And to do this, first we take the then, and we're going to make that our if portion. We take the if, we're going to make that their then, and we're going to rewrite it so that the if comes first. So to write the converse, we're going to write it to where it says if it has three sides. So then, and in this case it says a shape is a triangle. So we're going to say then a shape is a triangle. And that's the converse. Now you can make your converse sound a little bit nicer by saying if a shape has three sides, then it is a triangle. That's perfectly allowable and actually sounds a little better. But what I've written is still the converse. You just switch the if and the then and rewrite it. So I've got one for you to try down below. Go ahead and pause the video, write out the converse of that statement on your own, and press play when you're ready to see the answer. So again, we're going to switch the if and the then. The if will become then. The then will become if, and we'll rewrite it with the if first. So if it is a quadrilateral, then a shape has four sides. So now let's take a look at inverses. An inverse adds a not to the hypothesis and the conclusion. So basically it just negates the hypothesis and negates the conclusion. So for example, what is the inverse of the following? If a shape is a triangle, then it has three sides. So by adding not, I mean you're going to find a way to negate each part of that statement. So if a shape is a triangle, to negate that we could say if a shape is not a triangle, then it has three sides. Then you could say then it does not have three sides. So you've got to play around with the words a little bit in order to make it a negative of the statement that's been said. And it's not always going to be just the word not, and you can reword that in a way that makes sense to you, so long as you're negating the statement. So the inverse of our original statement was if a shape is not a triangle, then it does not have three sides. All right, here's another example. You go and try this one out on your own, pressing pause and press play when you're ready to see the answer. Just be careful if you do that it already has a not, so you're going to negate a not. And we'll look at that in a second. Alright, so we're going to write the inverse. If a shape is round, well, that one's pretty easy to negate because you can say if a shape isn't, you can make it a contraction, isn't round, or you can say is not round. Then it is not a square. Well, the negative of a negative just cancels out. So you can say then it is a square. And that's still the inverse. So the inverse of our original statement is if a shape is not round, then it is a square. That's obviously not true, but inverses aren't always true. And now we're on to contrapositives. A contrapositive adds a not to the hypothesis and conclusion and changes the order of the hypothesis and conclusion. So really the contrapositive is a mixture of the inverse and the converse. So for example, what is the contrapositive of the following statement? If an angle is obtuse, then its measure is bigger than 90 degrees. Well, the first thing we're going to do is negate it. So if an angle is not obtuse, then its measure is not bigger than 90 degrees. So we negate it first, and now we're going to change the order. We're going to change the if to then, and the then to if, and we're going to rewrite it. So if its measure is not bigger than 90 degrees, then an angle is not obtuse. Alright, go ahead and try the one down below, pressing pause and press play when you're ready to see the answer. And for that one I got, if it is a square, then a shape is not round. And I got that by adding the not after the round, or right before the round, is not round, taking off the not for when it says then it is not a square, changing the then to if and the if to then, and rewriting. So if it is a square, then the shape is not round.